Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mindshare Partners Expert Interview Series, where we highlight thought leaders in the workforce mental health movement. Today, I'm excited to speak with Brigid Schulte, an award-winning journalist, author, and the director of the Better Life Lab at New America. Brigid recently wrote a piece in Harvard Business Review titled "How Companies Can End a Culture of Overwork," something I'm sure none of us can relate to at this time. But with that, Brigid, hello, and nice to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
All right. So in that article, your first recommendation actually starts with leadership and breaking echo chambers. And you mentioned how sometimes data actually doesn't always work. So can you tell us a little bit more about this idea and why we actually need to start with leadership?
Well, leadership is a great place to start, but it's not the only place to start. I want to make that clear because if we say it's only up to leaders, then we'll be waiting an awful long time. What I will say is, in the course of reporting the latest book that's just come out, Overwork, Transforming the Daily Grind and the Quest for a Better Life, I was really surprised. I was looking at work redesign experiments before COVID. I was looking
Mm,
at all of the experimentation during COVID. And then I was looking at the short work hours movement and companies and organizations that were completely shifting the way that they were working and really focusing on output and shortening their hours. And I have to tell you, with someone with workaholic tendencies, I first was a huge skeptic. Like, can you really do that? And
mm,
what I will say is, throughout that entire process of trying to understand change and how change happens, I was really struck over and over and over again by the power of leadership mindset. And what I saw prior to COVID, there's been really interesting and frankly, really troubling academic research that showed when organizations were doing work redesigns. And I opened up with one that was very creative at Intel, several years ago, and worked really well. And the data shows that, everything that a CEO or a leader would want: more productivity, healthier, happier employees, more profitability, streamlined systems, all sorts of things that you would think a leader would want, because they were different, because the way that people were working was outside of what many leaders were familiar with.
mm,
Uh, at the earliest chance, many of them said, "We're not going to do it that way anymore." Sort of a retraction to the status quo. This is what I know. This is how I succeeded, and so this is how I think everybody should work, without recognizing that many people who are in leadership tend to be men, tend to be men without any care responsibilities, tend to have
mm,
somebody else taking care of a whole lot of other things that need to be done in order to live and survive. And not everyone is like that. And then what ends up happening is they talk to other leaders with similar life experiences. And that becomes how they shape and see reality that they then
mm,
set for everyone else. They set the tone for the culture. And so one person that I interviewed said, it's not like there's a cabal of like evil men who are like trying to make things difficult for everyone, but it is an echo chamber because they talk to each
mm,
other. And so then you are sort of in this very rarefied bubble where you're not in touch with the lived experience of just about everyone else who works for you. And you're seeing it now with all these like return to office calls, kind of the old factory model that somehow, if you're in a place, that work is a place you go, that somehow you're doing a better job, when the data is so clear that that's not at all how you need to be or should be measuring work in the 21st century for most jobs, that it should be output oriented, it should be performance and impact oriented.
absolutely. And so, fleshing out the picture further, then, how does this, let's just say, lack of leadership mindset lead to burnout as it trickles down throughout the rest of the organization?
When you have these ideal worker cultures and you reward long hours and you reward presence, and you're not really focused on that input and the performance, what ends up happening is you create busyness cultures where, if you know you're going to be rewarded for working long hours, what I found is that people will work long hours whether there's work to do or not, because it's a story that we've been told that somehow to be productive, to somehow be the global leader, to have this, growth economy, we need to work this way. And so that was one of the main questions that I was really asking as I was reporting this book: is, do we need to work this way? Is the cost worth it? And I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. No, it's not.
Hmm.
We don't need to work this way. It does not give us the best, work output, and the consequences are enormous to health and to quality of life, and on down the line, as well as business productivity and innovation, which is what you would want as a leader. Now, there are times, the news is breaking, something's happening, you do
Hmm.
have to work late, no doubt about it. There will always be code red times, but that's not every day. Even emergency room physicians need time off to rest and recover. You cannot live code red overwork every single day, or you will burn out or die. And that's the danger when you have busyness cultures.
Oftentimes, and you've kind of alluded to this around job redesign, but oftentimes employers make the mistake of to fix burnout, to fix mental health issues at work, they kind of over-index on individual solutions like,
Yeah.
the yoga class or the meditation app or even therapy, which is absolutely evidence-based, but may not necessarily fix the core root cause of burnout. So can you tell us a little bit about ways to actually and effectively combat overwork and burnout?
Yes. I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's a point that I make very early on in the book, in the very first chapter. Okay, so I will be the first one to tell you I love a hot bath. I love yoga. I love meditation apps. I love wellness programs. They're wonderful. And they are part of helping us manage our stress. They do play an important role, but they are not the source nor the solution to burnout. That if you look at the research, if you look at the literature, burnout is a systems problem. Oftentimes, burnout is because you have too few people and you've asked them to do too much. The workload is too much. You've asked them to do things that they're not ready to do, and you haven't given them the support to be able to learn how to do it. Sometimes it's from ambiguity. You're not sure what the job is, so you're not sure when you're done or if it's done to the right standard. Those are all systems issues, communication, right sizing your workforce. And so that's part of what I'm trying to do in the book is say, yes, of course, there are things that we can do individually. We have to believe in personal transformation because that's really all we can control. But at the same time, with any change, with any transformation, awareness of the system that the waters you're swimming in is part of that.
So, through that lens of overwork, what do you imagine or hope for when it comes to kind of the future of work or overwork?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think we are in a difficult moment. But what I will say is I think that the reality is a little bit different than the picture that we're painting. So
Mm.
there's no doubt, and we see it in the media, and this new administration is pushing hard against anything that sounds like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Whatever you call it, there is a real importance in getting the best people, the right people to do the right tasks, and understanding and recognizing that we all have biases. We have affinity biases, we have confirmation biases. That doesn't mean we're bad. It's just how our brain works, that we sort things. And so coming up with systems to make work processes fair, that's what we should all be doing anyway. So how do you create the systems that enable people, regardless of your race, class, gender, background, identity, whatever, that create open opportunity, that really enable people to thrive? And some of that is going back to hiring, promoting, how you reward people, performance evaluations, and systematizing it. Like a one-off training is not going to do it. You've
Hmm.
really got to come up with fair work systems. And so I have great hope. I think we all need to be thinking about work as not a place that we go, but what we do. And it doesn't matter time, manner, or place of when and how and where we do that. And even for hourly workers, or if you've got to be at a place so you don't have location flexibility, there's still an awful lot you can do around giving people more say and control over their schedules, giving
Hmm.
people more of a sense of empowerment over when they come in, making sure all the jobs are actually good jobs that pay a living wage, that give you predictable hours, that treat you like a human and not a widget. All of those things, having a human centered future of work is what I have great hope for.
I love that saying you ended with of treat people like humans, not a widget. And yeah, if I were to attach circling back, that kind of encompasses your kind of description of having that leadership mindset of these elements of treating people as human beings with dignity, with respect, giving them voice, and also fairness of what it truly means to create a fair and equal workplace environment. So, with that, that concludes our time together. Thank you so much, Brigid, for sharing your insights. We'll include links to Brigid and her work in the comment section or description section below. Thank you all for watching, and thank you, Brigid, for your time and expertise.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It's just been wonderful talking with you.